Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pierce. This is a Ukraine war news update, first part thereof for the 10th of August 2025. We're going to start with the Ukrainian General Staff figures for the Russian losses for the day before. All the usual caveats apply, of course, to these figures. 950 personnel lost is below 1,000, pretty much where we've seen it over the last few days. One single tank, 4 troop-carrying AFVs. Typically low in those categories, and a couple of very high categories here. So artillery systems 70. That is extraordinary. That is almost 3 times the daily average. 4 multiple launch rocket systems as well is a very high number in that category. Well above the daily average. And 126 vehicles and fuel tanks is significantly above 100. So some fairly decent numbers there in a few of those categories. Artillery systems, you're going to see a number of montages soon, a number of these featuring artillery pieces. We know that it's going to include heavy mortars and whatnot. With artillery systems, I don't know whether every single piece here listed has got lasting damage. It's very difficult because it's very difficult to ascertain battle damage assessment to artillery pieces because you often see a single hit with a drone, but no spotter drone, and so the FPV drone just cuts out as it hits somewhere near the barrel. But you don't know if that's going to actually take out the artillery piece or not. So that would be a weakness in this category compared to quite often with troop carrying AFVs, you get much better evidence that they have been substantially taken out there somewhere in the middle of a field or along a road, and they get hit by 2, 3, 4 FPV drones, and you see a smoking hulk at the end, you know that that's definitely destroyed. Okay, let's talk about a few troop situations and put them in a context of battlefield events. I haven't done a frontline update for some time now. I'm on holiday, as you know. Ukrainian forces have liberated the village of Bezalivka in Sumy region and fully cleared it. The General Staff has confirmed the operation involved the 33rd Separate Assault Regiment and the 24th Separate Assault Battalion. During the battle, the Ukrainian troops eliminated 18 Russian servicemen. Now, if you know this area, if you remember, you got Tetkino here, which is a town just inside the border of Kursk of Russia, and here we have the border, that line coming up here. You've got the Ukrainians having gone into Tetkino. The Russians have pushed back in Tetkino more recently, but there's been this village just into Sumy, south of the border, called Bezalivka, that the Russians are taking control of. The Ukrainians have pushed the Russians back out of there, and the Russians have taken a few casualties. It's been cleared out. That's to say that there it is, Bezalivka. That's to say that 18 soldiers were eliminated, more than 20 wounded. So taken some fairly heavy casualties for a smallish sort of village there. Ukrainians having some success in the Sumy area in pushing the Russians back there. Some other troop elimination successes for the Ukrainians. Ukrainian Air Force carried out precision bomb strike on a Russian battalion command post near Aleshki. The General Staff reports about 25 Russian troops were killed and at least 11 were wounded, according to the commander, chief of staff, engineering chief, and a platoon leader, including the commander, chief of staff, engineering chief, and platoon leader. So that's quite a list of people taken out in Oleshki. A really useful strike there, and actually that is supposedly caught on camera. It's supposedly this one that took out. Precise airstrike was carried out on an underground Russian command post in the Leshki area of Kherson region. It's claimed about 25 military were killed, 11 were injured. So that's good news for Ukrainians there. Then we have this is not so much about troop losses, but I'm just going to talk about the contested village of Dachne. This is Dachne. I mean, there are many places called Dachne, but this is just inside the Dnipropetrovsk border. Russians have claimed that they have taken control of it. They put a flag up there. Ukrainians say that's not true. General Staff say that there is still Ukrainian presence there. General Staff say defense forces continue to control the settlement of Dachne in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Information about its occupation is not true. Make of that what you will. Then we go on to hear some good news about Ukraine uh, and what they're doing around Pokrovsk, and then some very bad news. So, the armed forces of Ukraine have destroyed Russian elite special operations forces assault sabotage groups near Pokrovsk. Of the 150 occupiers, only 30 reached the city's outskirts. This is coming from the south, it appears. The Russians sent three groups from Seledovo, so that is further to the south here, each consisting of 50 soldiers who moved for 14 days over a distance of at least 8 kilometers, crawling roughly 600 meters per day. So, yesterday, I showed you some vampire drone footage of soldiers around Pokrovsk being taken out. I was talking to you about how it's really interesting. They're not even using unarmored vehicles like motorbikes and whatnot on the approach to Pokrovsk, and they're just getting picked off by the Russians, by the Ukrainians, sorry. And this appears to be a validation of that. So they moved for 14 days over a distance of 8 kilometers, crawling roughly 600 meters per day. Those who couldn't advance were eliminated by drone strikes, while the survivors were bombed by artillery and mortar fire. Uh, so only 30 reached the city's outskirts. Now, the issue here for the Ukrainians is that that is a calculation the Russians are fine with. At least they have been over the course of the war. I remember talking to you about how they had assault with APCs and whatnot at the time with 20 on each, assault a tree line. They'd send 100 soldiers, 5 APCs, 4 of them would get taken out. They'd lose like 95 soldiers, but 5 would get through and get a foothold there. Then they'd send another wave, another 5 would get through, another wave, and then they control the tree line. But they take huge losses in doing so. Well, this is the same kind of calculation here, that possibly for the Russians, 150 sent, 30 surviving, 120 not reaching the goal is a calculation that they are willing to take. That is a fifth getting through, 4/5 dying, or becoming wounded. So, although those are really good figures for the Ukrainians, take it with a note of caution. Then there is this. So this is the bad news bit that we're hearing northeast of Pokrovsk. Here is the map. So this is well, anyway, it's northeast of Pokrovsk, just down here. I think you've got Pokrovsk over there, um, and Konstantinivka are up to the north east. Anyway, on the northeastern flank of Pokrovsk, Russian forces achieved a significant breakthrough to the east of Dobropilya, occupying positions 7 kilometers deep into Ukrainian lines. And this is what happens when you use things like motorcycles. After artillery preparation on the village of Zoloty Kolodyaz, Russian DRG, deep reconnaissance groups, units infiltrated through lightly defended Ukrainian lines east of Noveshakove and advanced approximately 10 kilometers north. They were able to enter Zoloty Kolodyaz, where they engaged in clashes with disorganized and unprepared Ukrainian soldiers. Nevertheless, Ukraine was able to maintain control over the village. However, the grey zone now extends to its southern outskirts. Normal Russian assault detachments then followed the DRGs, pushing north down the tree lines on the tactical heights and capturing the positions on either side, including on the edges of 3 different quarries. They were able to reach the southern edge of the Velika Balka Gully and Velika Balka and pushed north along it, following the initial path of the DRGs. Russian forces captured positions in this gully in 3 smaller gullies branching off to the east and west, and in nearby tree lines in the edge of the tactical heights, so on and so forth. That is a breakthrough that is pretty worrying, because it was rather similar to an earlier breakthrough across and up the T0504 highway, uh, and the junction there. I don't know if you guys remember that, but there was a motorbike assault that gained them loads of kilometers in a day, and this looks somewhat similar, where punching through where defenses are porous, and there simply aren't enough boots on the ground. And this is what happens when the Ukrainians rely very heavily on drones to defend, and they do a really good job with that. But if you're substituting humans for drones, then it means that if you do punch through that drone corridor, you've got very little to rely on in terms of defense, and it becomes easy to take advantage of any sort of breakthrough. So that is not good news for the Ukrainians there. Volodymyr Tretiak here says, and I agree with this, I think we don't give the Ukrainian army enough credit for repelling the Kharkiv invasion last year and now the Sumy invasion. So this is the Bezalivka liberation, that village we just talked about earlier. You've got to remember that these appear to have been both the Kharkiv one particularly, but also Sumy as well, actually, uh, main thrusts of Russian attacks. Like really, it appears that they were banking on those being quite successful. Kharkiv, they were hoping to get close enough to the Kharkiv city and then attack it um, with artillery in the Lipsy sort of area, and they failed to get far enough down south, and the Ukrainians rushed in loads of defenses and stopped that. And with Sumy, they were hoping to get close enough to Sumy city to hit that with artillery, and the Ukrainians rushed in defenses and have done an amazing job of pushing the Russians back there. Both of those have been actually really successful Ukrainian defenses that we probably haven't given the Ukrainians enough credit for. Now, there are then issues elsewhere on the front line, like Pokrovsk, as was the case when they were defending Kharkiv. They're having to make these difficult decisions. They didn't pile in defenders to elsewhere along the front, and at the same time, they're also attacking into Kursk. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. Now, uh, Andrew Perpetua, with the loss stats for yesterday, you can see the Russian losses there are fairly substantial, made up predominantly from ATVs and civilian vehicles, but also quite a few bits of artillery there, and Ukrainian far fewer losses. So that's good news for the Ukrainians. We have the typical pink surveillance and comms equipment at the top. Then we've got a radar and TPQ-50. It's about $200,000 worth of on top of the Humvee um, uh, radar equipment that's taken out with a Vandal drone. We've got typically half a dozen UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles, all destroyed there. You're going to see a lot of that going forward, and some 5 bits of artillery variously damaged or destroyed. With single tank destroyed, the T-72, single AFV, 4 APVs, including PBV 302. That's a Swedish provided one, went obsolete in 2014. They provided, I think, all of their PBV um, 302s to Ukraine. Then you got a half dozen mine resistant ambush protection vehicles, Max Pros and Kirpies, there 50-50, and some mobility vehicles variously damaged and destroyed or abandoned. And then onto civilian vehicles, quite a few, mainly destroyed. But if we go back to the Russian losses, it looks like actually the Russians have had a worse day of it on this particular day. Some swings and roundabouts at the moment. Got a sunk boat, the Kapitan Ushakov. A suspected sabotage. Interesting. So that's a tug in St. Petersburg. So he's put that suspected sabotage. We've got a grad. There were 4 listed today. 1 destroyed here. I am not going to show it to you because we've seen quite a few of them, but there's another video of a BM-21 grad fundamentally exploding. Type 75 is a North Korean multiple launch rocket system. I googled it yesterday and came up with a Japanese one, but actually there is a North Korean one. That makes a lot more sense. Quite a few howitzers, D30s and whatnot, damaged there, but it's difficult to get a decent battle damage assessment when they are hit, and we'll see that in a second. We've got 4 tanks, including 2 T90Ms, so that's interesting. I haven't seen them for some time, and 2 track garden sheds. 50% are being turned into kind of non-tanks, and the other 2 are T90Ms. I, I wonder if that's just an anomaly or whether we'll see more T90Ms going forward. Maybe that's what they're producing from new. Maybe they stockpiled them, or maybe it's just randomly 2 T90Ms. We got some trucks and then an awful lot of motorcycles, as you'd expect, given that the Russians are attacking with motorcycles very, very consistently, and a lot of civilian vehicles as well there too. And then some dark grey ones at the bottom, just unknown things that have been destroyed by Vampire drones dropping mines and them exploding, but not quite sure what they are. Obviously the resolution imagery isn't good enough. Right, moving on. Here we're going to just look at a bunch of different, and here you can see the barrel of a howitzer, a bunch of different stuff getting taken out by Ukrainian FPV drones. Here you've got a hidden howitzer. Very carefully, the FPV drone moves and then hits at the base of the barrel there. But you have no idea whether that's going to do significant enough damage to stop it being operational. And that's what I mean about the artillery numbers of artillery pieces listed. You're just never sure whether, I mean, it's accurate, as in, I'm sure that the Ukrainians don't make stuff up, but they do have to rely on, a bit of hope that these artillery pieces are debilitated from such strikes, right? Here we have a video, and you can go and watch these at your leisure on, they're all linked in the description below. These are pieces of Russian equipment being taken out in Kursk in a forest there. You can see those drones flying through trees. It takes quite a bit of skill, I think, to be able to navigate such terrain to hit the required targets and whatnot. So here again, and actually you see a couple of these getting caught on the netting. They're flying under a vehicle to explode. I think it's this one. No, it's not that one. There's another one that you can see it gets caught on the netting and then cuts out. It might be here. Yeah, it just gets caught on the netting. You don't know whether it does actually explode in the end. And yeah, anyway, they are obviously, and the quad right in there. So yeah, lots of just at the moment, lots and lots of montages being released. It's a bit of a purple patch. Here we've got near Vovchansk, up in the Kharkiv region, one of the sectors there. Operators of the Guard Brigade deploying, again, FPV drones. So Ukrainians using a lot of FPVs. It seems at the moment they were playing catch up with the Russians. The Russians started using FPVs more than the Ukrainians, or they got the head start on them. So drones of the Scorpion type on camouflage targets, knocking out 3 enemy vehicles there, and that could be where you get like the grey at the bottom, where you just don't know what some of these vehicles are because they are under camouflage netting. That could be what Andrew Perpetua is referring to. And here we have NATO reconnaissance aircraft activity. So slightly moving the topic here. I just thought I'd show you this, all the different types of planes doing their reconnaissance. We've got French Rafales. We've got American Bombardier Challengers. We've got, trying to work out what they are. Are they Canadian? No, I don't know. British, American, Italian, so on and so forth. So lots of different. You got Poseidons, and yeah. Anyway, lots of different planes, and you can see how close they get to Russian territory. Some of them. I was watching an RAF documentary, and they were really close to Crimea in that documentary. You can visually see it. It was incredible before the Russian planes went and ushered them away. It's a bit of kind of game of chess around there, but obviously you don't need to get like super close because they have fairly long range radar um, capabilities that can get you the desired information without getting on the doorstep of Crimea and you know risking getting shot down and whatnot. Okay, destruction of Russian Molniya drones here. So going back to drones, I don't know why I threw that one in the middle of this. But anyway, these are the Molniya drones that are really quite a problem for the Ukrainians. But here we have, I think, 3 of these getting taken down by a shotgun drone. Lots of interspersed clips here from whoever put this together. But yeah, the claim is that they are taken out by an FPV drone with a mounted shotgun, and the Molnias then fall to their demise there. What else do we have? Right, slight worry here potentially. So Russia's reinforcing the front in preparation for large-scale assaults. Mariupol's mayoral advisor Andriushenko reports ammunition, troops, armored vehicles, and tanks are being sent continuously, with the biggest build-up on the Zaporizhia and Donetsk fronts, where intense attacks are expected. This is slightly worrying, but we have heard this before. we've heard lots of rumors about Zaporizhia being uh, supplied with all sorts of equipment. We've heard that over time, and it's never quite come to fruition. But I don't know. Here, Russia is massively transferring armored vehicles to the Zaporizhia direction, and we have a video here that shows, well, a couple of bits of kit being transported. I don't know if this particularly confirms that they are massively transferring armored vehicles to the fronts. But um, if we are to take Andriy seriously, the Ukrainians might need to be starting to worry a little bit about Zaporizhia and Donetsk. Not that they're not already worrying about those places, particularly Donetsk. Yesterday evening and night, at least 15 trawls with tanks, 10 with other types of armored vehicles, more than 30 trucks with ammunition, as well as fuel tankers were recorded. So some numbers there as well. Right, and then finally on to this. 3 have been killed by sea mine explosions on beaches in Odessa Oblast. This is a real shame for Ukrainians there. One man was killed on the beach about 60 kilometers south of the port city of Odessa, while another man and a woman were killed in a separate incident in Zatoka further south. So mines are an issue, and they are washing ashore by the looks of it. Um, yeah, real shame there. Okay, going on to distant strikes, and it's been another, I think, pretty good night for the Ukrainians. The Russians sent in 100 drones, 70 were shot down, so that's obviously a 70% interception rate. 30 hits were in 12 places along the front line. Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, Sumy, and Chernihiv regions were targeted. We don't have too much detail on what was struck by the Russians, but the biggest hit was an attack on a train station in Dnipropetrovsk region. The invaders have definitely copied Ukraine by stepping up attacks on railway infrastructure near to or linked to the front line, says Tim White. This is Sinelikove, and you can see it is on fire there. That is railway infrastructure. All trains have been cancelled at Snelnikove after the heavy attack on the station. A new timetable with diversions is already in operation. There were no injuries as all workers were in shelters. 2 private houses nearby have been damaged. And so you can see some of the destruction done to that railway infrastructure there. Moving on, we have Russian troops struck Druzhkivka, so this is quite close to the front line. You've got Konstantinivka, Druzhkivka, Kramatorsk, Sloviansk. In Donetsk Oblast, Druzhkivka was hit twice on the morning of the 10th, killing one person, and that's this morning, and injuring 2 others. About 5 private houses and 2 civilian cars were damaged. So you can see Druzhkivka being targeted. Again, civilian infrastructure there being hit. That's it's hellish to live that close to the front line. Russia says it destroyed 120. So moving now from Russian drones attacking Ukraine to Ukrainian drones attacking Russia. Russia claims it destroyed 121 Ukrainian drones overnight. Even if this information is true, we know quite a few got past air defenses. Kremlin says the largest number, 29, were again intercepted in Krasnodar region. I don't have any information about anything being struck in Krasnodar. 15 more over annexed Crimea. Again, no information about there. Bryansk next on 13, but we do have some information on some very significant strikes. So we'll go through what Tim White was reporting last night. This is the moment Ukraine probably hit the oil refinery in Saratov. So Saratov oil refinery was definitely hit. There are claims that a nearby oil refinery in the nearby Engels might have been hit. This is where Saratov, Engels 2, you got air bases up there. But these are the refineries being hit, or at least a refinery. I've gone through maybe 40 videos, says Tim White, from various sources of events in Saratov, and this is the best one. I mean, it really does show that the refinery is ablaze. No way Russia can deny this or claim a bit of debris fell. Another serious blow to Russia's oil output. I think there's 7 million tons go through this refinery a year. So this is pretty significant. Gagarin Airport in Sibirokova, Saratov, has been added to the list of non-flying airports in Russia last night. Uh, it's now clear at least 2 drones hit the refinery in Saratov. Here, you can clearly see that the plant is already on fire when a rather spectacular second explosion occurs. So you've got flames and smoke that you can see just about in the distance there. And then another explosion takes place with sparks flying off from there. And it then glows even more. So, seems that as though Ukraine has also hit Engels tonight. This is where we're less sure. Don't have any firms data. We do have firms data of Saratov. So there's a translated post there saying series of explosions thundered in Saratov and Engels preliminarily. The air defense system was activated. Eyewitnesses report that a cloud of smoke is visible in one of the areas the fire occurred. Local residents said that about 8 explosions were heard over Saratov and Engels. There's no official information about victims and destruction, so on and so forth. Governor of Saratov region is indeed trying to blame the debris for the huge fire at the oil refinery, blame debris rather than a direct strike, though he says at an industrial enterprise rather than the refinery. Meanwhile, drone and missile wreckage may be responsible for the scene outside an apartment block where the facade is damaged, along with windows and cars there. Double bingo in Saratov region, a local channel in Engels says the oil refinery there has also been hit. It seems this is in addition to the strike at the Saratov plant a few miles away. Although I cannot confirm that, it's impossible to imagine Russian channels exaggerating things. And then he says, "Oopsie, the Engels channel has deleted that post. This could be they could be in trouble with authorities for revealing too much unless they got it wrong. And there is only one refinery hit, so just a little bit unsure. So on and so forth. Okay, so Saratov definitely was hit, as we have seen from various footage. This is this morning, still on fire. You've got 3 fires going on at Saratov by the look of it. Several fires ongoing, says Gerashchenko there. Saratov looks amazing, says Grayskull, as the fires burn in the morning, and that's what it looks like more recently. Territory of Saratov oil refinery still on fire after last night's attacks. And that is where it is. So 600 kilometers, about 590, I think it is, from Ukraine. That is the firm's data, slightly enlarged on the next image here. So really significant heat signature coming from Saratov, as you would expect. And various images show the the raging fire and what it looks like today. That's going to be something that's going to be very challenging for the Russians to deal with, no doubt. It's still not clear if Ukraine also hit Engels refinery close to Saratov, says Tim White this morning. Local channel, which reported it last night, quickly removed the story and this morning posted this, blaming smoke from the Saratov refinery, but it is 15 to 20 kilometers away, so showing smoke behind an apartment building and claiming that that was Saratov and not Engels, even though that is in Engels, one presumes. Also in Russia, the 9-kilometer Druzhba oil pipeline has been attacked. Details of Wednesday's hit in Bryansk region have only just been leaked, so this happened the other night. Independent Astra Media reports at least 1 drone hit the territory of the Unecha linear production and dispatch station in the village of Vysokoye. And then, yeah, I think we've seen the rest of that thread. Now, the final one we're going to come to is this, and this is significant because it's so freaking far away. This is 1,700 kilometers from the front line, and although no substantial damage was done, a single drone was seen to have reached it. It's an unknown type of drone. Right now, Russian Lukoil oil reservoirs in Ukhta, Komi region of Russia are under drone attack, 1,700 kilometers from the front line. A drone of an unknown model. You can see it there. It's got like a V-shaped tail coming out the back. I don't know what you call them, the tail wings or whatever. That was spotted in the Komi region of Russia prior to the attack. And here we can see some of the images. You've got a pipe that kind of goes around the side of that oil reservoir has been burst. That's not, I don't think that's not oil or anything coming out from the actual reservoir. That's water coming from that thin pipe that you can see there. And yeah, so Ukrainian drones have reached there for the first time. Locals reported loud explosions in the area. That indicates more than one. We have seen this drone though. This, as you can just see that V shape at the back there, just there. Um, so that is Lukoil in the Komi Republic, and I think the final thing, yeah, so that's that burst pipe there at the side. But yeah, unfortunately, no lasting damage to that. But I think it might be a shot across the bow from the Ukrainians, as it is close to the Arctic Circle here, 1,050 miles or 1,700 kilometers from Ukraine. To get all that way, I mean, it seems such a shame for that drone to have got all that way and not to have punctured the container. But still, that tells the Russians, look, we can hit it, and we're probably going to try again. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to move your air defenses around, but then you don't have enough air defenses to cover the vast nation of the Russian Federation, and that presents a dilemma for the Russians. Do they do something to try and protect those facilities, or do they just say, "Well, there's not a lot we can do," and hope that the Ukrainian drones don't puncture the containers? Right. Just hearing that the Irish Times is reporting an aging Russian tanker, Blue, carrying sanctioned crude oil from near St. Petersburg, has entered Irish waters under a false Benin flag, without insurance or safety papers. The 22-year-old vessel, part of Russia's shadow fleet, switched off its tracking before entry. Weeks ago, reports warned of a surge in such tankers bypassing the English Channel. So that's a channel south of England, south of the UK, between the UK and France, where normally you get a lot of tankers passing through. But it could be that they're worried about them getting stopped and inspected. So they're now going through Irish waters and maybe going up further north and coming down the North Sea or something like that, bypassing the English Channel via Ireland's west coast to evade UK monitoring. Hopefully, something can be done about that. Despite surveillance by the Irish Coast Guard, Air Corps, and Naval Service, officials admit it's extremely difficult to intercept Russia's shadow fleet tankers. Many, like Blue, avoid the English Channel to exploit Ireland's limited capacity to track and board such vessels in its waters. Unfortunately, where there's a will, there's a way. And then we hear that Indian state refineries have started to, and we'd heard this previously, but there's more information about this coming from Reuters here. Indian state refineries are buying oil from the US and Middle East, in the Middle East, instead of from Russia. India's largest state-owned refiners, Indian Oil Corp and Bharat Petroleum, have bought at least 22 million barrels of non-Russian crude for delivery in September and October. So Trump's threats have worked there, uh, but it's interesting to see how Brazil have changed their behavior over the course of the war. Brazil is concerned about additional US tariffs, as it has been one of the biggest buyers of Russian diesel and fertilizer since the invasion of Ukraine, receiving hundreds of millions of dollars in discounts on fuel purchases, according to the Financial Times. Trade between Brazil and Russia was $12.4 billion in 2024. Brazil's diesel imports from Russia, this is a staggering figure, have risen from 95 million in 2022, which is basically not that much. $95 million worth of diesel in 2022, when the war began, rose to 4.5 billion the following year and 5.4 billion last year. That is a massive increase. So Brazil are obviously taking huge advantage of discounted diesel that Russia are trying to pimp out to the world, and Brazil are like, "Yep, we'll do that." Brazil imports about 85% of the fertilizer it needs to grow food, and Russia is the largest supplier, shipping $3.5 billion worth of fertilizer. So Brazil, if Trump is, I don't know, will he ever be Will he always be Taco, or will he come true on his sanctions on those nations buying stuff from Russia? I mean, he seems to have done that with India, but hasn't yet with Brazil to the same degree. But Brazil are worried, and if Trump does come true on his threats, then Brazil could be in some trouble there. And if they then stop buying that from Russia, then Russia are going to be in trouble. And that's the intention, right? And finally, Finland is to cut support for Ukrainian refugees. We've seen this in Germany. A number of places are starting to rein back welfare for Ukrainian refugees as they become more and more established in those countries. I presume they might not need those extra, um, you know, bunk ups from the state, or it could be to try and encourage those Ukrainians to return. I don't know, but starting 2026, so it's still some way off, the Finnish authorities plan to end funding for integration programs for Ukrainians, including language courses, employment assistance, and introductory lectures, according to their media outlet. Yay. Okay, that's enough for me. Hopefully, that was of use and informative. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Toodle pips.